Well, folks, I don't know what time it is where you're at, but I am going to wish you a good morning. It is morning here for us, so good morning, Christopher.
Good morning.
As we indulge in our covfefe.
Both of our Disney products here.
Yes, so welcome to our discussion today. Today, we're taking a new twist, a new route in our conversation. Chris and I have been advocates of reading for the longest time, right? And not just the things that get assigned in the classroom.
No.
But quite the opposite. It's actually what intrigues us and what we can learn from. So we have a very diverse amount of books that we consume. And we came up with this idea. Chris actually, he mentioned to me, he's like, what are the books that influence you? And you've seen this on TikTok, you've seen it on YouTube, where they're the top 5 books for selling.
I've made plenty of those videos.
Right. And for today, the conversation really is around the most influential books that I have read and consumed, and I have a few of them here. And we're going to talk about only one of them today. Don't worry, we're not going to get into all these books today, but I think maybe going forward, we talk about a few of these books. And when I say influential, or when we talk about influential, the key element for me is something that got me to think differently, or more importantly, changed my behavior.
Actionable. That's very. Your second point there is how I define it too. It's actionable. Is this going to cause change in my life? Is this going to cause change in my viewpoint?
Right. And that's important, because the opposite of that is entertainment. Right? So I can read a book, consume it, enjoy it, but if no action comes out of that, if nothing changes for me in terms of my viewpoint, in terms of my behaviors, then I'm going to say that was a very entertaining book. So influential books change where I am. So let's get down to it. So I have a few books up here. First and foremost, I'm going to declare my religious beliefs here. My Bible is here on the bottom, and believe it or not, as a business book, the Bible is amazing.
It has a lot of financial tips.
Not just financial, it has leadership,
yeah.
management. It has a ton of business information in there. That's not today, right? We're not going to dive into that today, but maybe in the future.
Subtopic for today.
I have The Team of Rivals. For those of you who aren't familiar, that's actually going to be the topic for today, this Team of Rivals. And that has to do with Abraham Lincoln, his story arc, his historical impact, right, during very turbulent times. And again, what's the influential part on me as an individual, and how did it impact me? And that's what we'll dive into. Lean thinking, lean manufacturing. If you haven't, you don't know this about me yet, watch my other YouTube videos. We really dive into lean a lot. Good to Great. And that one is just fantastic. We'll play around with that later as well. And then 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Simple yet profound.
And just full disclaimer here, since we're talking about Team of Rivals, I have not read this book, so this is all new information to me during this discussion. And this is going to be stuff that I'm going to be maybe contrasting with your ideas, or the things that you've learned from the book. Yep. Or maybe I'm just going to blatantly agree with them. But I don't even know where this discussion is going to go.
Right. So, and I think that's important, that fresh perspective here. Obviously, if you haven't read it and you just want to use the fresh perspective only, great. While watching this video, fantastic. But go back and read this book. I mean, it is phenomenal. And your perspective today, if you can just focus in on the current events of today, and how this might impact people individually or societally, in terms of the parallels and where it's different, right? In terms of how this was applied in the 1860s versus now in the 2020s.
So let's start off the discussion here. What is the framework of the book?
Okay, so the framework of the book. So you have Abraham Lincoln, and he was president of the United States, elected 1860.
Okay.
Right? So this is right before the Civil War. And so the book itself, it starts off with this story arc. It's a beautiful play of 4 different people who were running for president, Lincoln being one of them. And you've got Salmon Chase, you've got Seward, Bates, I think, is the third one, and you've got Lincoln. And so the book itself is looking at all of those as individuals and kind of how they got to the place where the Republican National Convention, and those of you who don't know, Lincoln was a Republican, right? And the Republican Party was against slavery, right? That was the whole premise at that point. But you've got these four individuals running for the presidency. And in any political arena, what gets you up to that front point is usually different factions of thought that got you there. What they all had in common, what the Republican Party stood for at the time, was the abolishment of slavery. The difference was, how are we going to get there?
Okay.
How are we going to abolish it? And one person in particular, Salmon Chase, he was an advocate for the permanent, immediate, complete eradication of slavery, right? Now, saying that today, of course,
it's because it's gone. We don't know the different perspectives.
Yeah.
Because you have a norm in your society,
right,
and it's getting rid of it, but at the same time sustainable.
right, sustaining that permanent absolution of this nasty, terrible, inhumane thing.
Yes.
Okay, let's shift it today for just a moment.
Okay.
We're in a point in history where we have people rioting in the streets. We have people peacefully protesting in the
Let's
streets.
make the distinction between the two.
And both are happening, right?
Yes,
Peaceful protests. We have rioting. We have people who are just inflamed with the need for change, right? As a society, we have oppressed certain members of our society, right? The Black Lives Matter movement is one of those elements where it is crystal clear we have systemic things happening all the way and permeated all the way through our society that oppresses people. In fact, the reason we're talking about this now is there's individuals who die because of it, right? Now, we're at this pivotal point in history where we might, as a society, as the United States of America, we might decide no more, right? We might decide no more. And you're living in a generation, I'm here, you guys are here in a generation where we might switch over to where our great-great-grandchildren, 100, 150 years from now, right? They might go, wow, why did you even do that in the first place? That doesn't make sense. Just like we're sitting here today trying to reconcile how people had slaves.
Back in the day, yeah. Because it takes a couple generations, but and it takes the change.
Right.
But once you get to the permanent change,
The sustainable permanent change.
the sustainable permanent change, you look back and go, none of this makes sense.
It makes sense. So, okay, so you guys get it, right? So we're in that piece of history where change is happening. So we're going to take that same mentality, like conflict, different people, different approaches, right? Like right now, there's different people who are conservative about the change, like, oh, we'll get there someday. There's some people who are adamant, we've got to change, we've got to get the laws changed. There's some people who are like, let's abolish all police departments altogether, right? That's radical change. So all these different, but all saying similar things, that it's bad, right? But different approaches. Okay, now
Back to the book. Okay.
Back to Lincoln. So what we have with Lincoln is this beautiful exhibition of leadership. What he did was he filled his cabinet. So he got elected president in 1860. So he won the nomination. He was actually elected. When he started filling his cabinet, Secretary of the Treasury, Chief of Staff, you name it, right? He actually filled those positions with his political rivals. So people with different viewpoints, some radically different viewpoints from his own or from what he was professing or what other people in the nation were. But here's the thing. All of them said the same thing. We need to get rid of slavery.
So it's all on the side of getting against slavery, but from the different perspectives, like, hey, we need to do it now. We need to do it kind of slowish and everything in between.
Yes. All of them said slavery is bad.
Yep.
None of them agreed on how and when to get it done. Okay, but he didn't care. He didn't approach it from the viewpoint that I need to fill this group up of people who are going to lead this country with people who view the world exactly like I do.
What would be the ramifications had he done such a thing?
It would have been different. It would have been absolutely different. We would have had more of a divided nation, right? More people divided. So you get the crux of, like, slavery's bad. Yes, it's bad. Okay, so now that we're in this group and then we all agree that slavery is bad, how and when are we going to approach it? We disagree, we're going to fight. If we continue to fight amongst each other about how and when, who knows how and when it would have been accomplished. Here's what Lincoln did. He brought these rivals in together, and his leadership style was one that actually brought the best ideas from everyone, right? It was one that was able to bring in the different viewpoints and then develop a course of action that could be implemented, even though the people disagreed with one another. So again, I'm going to contrast this. If I take my leadership position and I fill up all the people around me who just agree with me, or who, we use the term today, are loyal to
Loyalists.
me, right? Loyal to me, which means any time they disagree with me, internally or publicly, they're against me. And if they agree or disagree with me internally or publicly, I kick them out.
And that doesn't foster good ideas. That fosters fear.
That fosters one idea. It fosters the one idea,
the core, the center,
that one person already has, one person, as opposed to how are we going to be able to bring together ideas and also bring together people. The people who were involved with developing the plan, if they have a vested interest in the development of it, right, they start off with it, and they disagreed with each other to start with, but they ultimately agree to a plan, even though they disagreed at the beginning, you're much more likely to implement that plan. Now, we're using things like slavery, and we're using the contemporary elements of discord and police brutality in the contemporary. These concepts don't have to apply to those huge concepts only. They can apply to day-to-day operations. Like, I'll give you an instance. Right now, as a company, we are changing one of our communication systems that we have. Right? Our company, if you don't know this, we were able to, during the pandemic, transition to being completely online.
So everyone got to go get
the
the computer home. And
yep. So we retained everyone. We've actually grown during this time period, but we've pushed everyone to being working from home. And so communication and communication tools, software tools to help us communicate, become critically important. And we started assessing and made a decision that we need to change. But instead of the leadership style of the executive sit back, make the decision on what it is, and then tell the crew we're implementing a new program, we got people involved in the decision-making process, right? So that up front, they might have some disagreements. Oh no, I like this feature, I like this function, I like the way this works, I don't like the way that one works. This discord that might occur, if we wait until the end to just tell them, this is what we're doing, you follow it, we have the chance for them rebelling against the change. As opposed to at the beginning, where you're involved and you have more people involved in the decision who might disagree with each other, even though they disagree, they're going to be involved in the decision. Once you implement, it's kind of hard for them to disagree with the decision.
It was their decision.
They're part of it. They're part of the process. So as a country now, again, learning from Lincoln and learning from this book, part of that healing process might be bringing people together who have different viewpoints of how we're going to solve this, and coming up with plans that are sustainable, not just ones that capture a nice headline or, God forbid, just a beautiful tweet that gets a whole lot of likes, right? That's not what sustainable change is. Sustainable change is hard. It's ugly, right? We think back to, again, I'll go back to Team of Rivals. In today's context, thinking back to slavery, it's an easy decision. Oh, get rid of it. It's terrible. Well, you have to put yourself in the context of that time. Yes, we needed to do that, but the ramifications of doing it were going to be extremely difficult to do. Yeah.
Yep.
We had entire infrastructures of supply chain that were built on this business model that was evil, it was terrible and wrong, but it was the reality of the day. And when you shut it off, what was going to happen? Things were going to change.
Yep.
Supply chain. Oh, beautiful, right? Supply chain.
Here, don't get him started on this.
Right? Something is silly as supply chain, right? Something is like, oh, supply chain, that's just how they move stuff around and make stuff, and it doesn't affect us. Guys, you felt supply chain during this pandemic, right? Yes. You're going to continue to feel supply chain. I felt it. Toilet paper, right?
Right.
Right? We're feeling it now with proteins, like the meat processors. They're affected by different things that are keeping things from happening, so that we're not getting food in the stores at the same cost it used to be.
I see that it's a relative perspective on it too, because it's something that's manufactured somewhere, and then the distribution of it. Ideas are the same way.
Yep.
And sustainable change is the same way. If you cut something off in one branch of it,
yep,
how does that affect the rest of it?
It's a trickle effect, absolutely. So while we can say in the 1860s, right, people made the decision that this needs to end, we can say emphatically not everyone agreed with that decision. Set that aside. Set the people aside who said, no, we need to keep it. No, wrong, right? Go away. You're bad people, right? Slavery was wrong. It shouldn't have happened. They're gone, right? But the whole point is, now that you got left with the people who are all agreeing we need to get rid of it, how do we do it?
Right.
How do we replace, and something as the human rights thing, we're not questioning should we do it. We're questioning and we're trying to figure out the plan of what's the ramifications of this. Those ramifications should never stop us. Does that make sense?
It's worthy of discussion. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Is there is no that one-sided view.
Yeah.
When a topic is worthy of discussion,
yes,
and you don't debate it, you say the way I want to execute it is the perfect way. Right. That's wrong.
Right. And also, like in this case, if we're debating like how we're going to implement the change, and we start talking about how difficult changing the supply chain, changing the labor component is going to be for the clothing manufacturer in the United States, we can't use that as the excuse to go, oh no, we can't change.
Right.
It's too hard. It's too hard to change. We're not going to change. No, that's not what this is about, right? Back to slavery. It's difficult. We're going to have to talk about the fact that now you used to have free labor. You feed and clothe people, and they're gonna work for you. To, oh, they're free, we're going to have to pay them. We're going to have to let them vote. We're going to have to treat them as human beings, right? This is a huge change for that society. Again, it's the right thing to do, but it's difficult to do.
Yeah.
Now let's come back to today, right? The difficulty part of it. Sometimes in these debates, right? Black Lives Matter. There's all kinds of things that are going on today about change.
Yeah.
Right? And so from that standpoint, some of those things that we talk about are difficult. Like reducing funding for police force and redirecting some of those funds to social programs. That's hard, right? Reducing a police force is hard. Reducing funding for a police force is hard. Abolishing police altogether, very difficult, right? What's the core of the topic that we're talking about and trying to accomplish in the first place? And we're trying to make sure our police protect us and serve us. Yeah, protect and serve. That's the motto for most police departments and forces, right? Protect and serve. If those police forces are not doing that, what do we need to do to change it? Right. We can't just go around doing the same thing that we've been doing all along. We can't just increase budgets and say, okay, more police is going to be better. We can't just write a reform thing to say, oh, you've been bad as a police officer, we're going to slap your
on the
hand,
wrist, yeah.
right? We have to have checks and balances to power.
And how do you implement checks and balances?
Yes. Now, by all means, this is very important here.
Yes.
I don't have that answer.
Oh, yeah. But it's worthy of getting more people, and that's the whole idea. Just like your notion with process, right? The notion with how you come up with process is there's never a perfect process.
Yes.
Well, ideas are the same way. We can't have just you saying what we need to do. We need to get more people involved in the discussionary aspect
Yes.
of, you know what, I have this idea, well, I have this idea. That all molds together with ideas of humanity.
Yes.
On the right side of things, on the correct side of things.
Yes. And this is the hard part for leaders. Now with leadership. Leadership is the people who are taking a stand and influencing other folks. Right? My definition of leadership is very simple. To be a leader, you only need one thing, and that's follower. Right? That's it. That's all you need. And once you have a follower, once you have anybody who's following you, to me, you have a responsibility for that power that you have. Right? So Spider-Man.
Okay, Spider-Man,
right?
yeah.
Great power has great responsibility. But leadership itself, it's an inherent responsibility. Now, this applies to people who accept that and who don't accept that responsibility. If you have people following you, you have a responsibility. You have a voice, right? You have a message. You have a way of influencing other people because they're listening to you. So you might have different tools to be able to accomplish that as well. So one more time, I'll shift back to the book. This is one of the things that impresses me with Abraham Lincoln. He was not what you would call a typical leader, right? He wasn't the guy, the alpha male who's going to stand up in front of everyone and just grab your attention and just say, follow me, right? He wasn't physically commanding. He was tall, but he was gangly.
Slender.
Yeah, slender, gangly kind of body build. He was, from all the pictures and things that you see and all the descriptions, he wasn't exactly a handsome man, right? But all that aside, his gift was being a storyteller. And what he did was he used that gift to bring people together. Right? You get a fierce debate going on, lots of people in the room, and the book has some of these stories, right? You got all this stuff, conflict and people ready to throw down and just settle it, fist to fist. And he would come in and start telling a story.
Okay.
And it was one with purpose, but it was one that it was kind of long and kind of just it went on. And you get people to calm down as they're listening to the story, and he's drawing their attention in, and he just keeps it going. And eventually his story, it's profound, but it's simple at the same time. It got people to rethink, to calm down and rethink. So like today, in today's environment, where you have people who have conflict, you as a leader, myself as a leader, you watching this as a leader, if you have someone following you, you are a leader. What's your gift? What do you have as a tool to be able to influence people? Some people have their dad jokes on TikTok.
It's influential.
It's influential. People watch, right? What do you use that for, right? What do you do with that? Some people are comedians. Some people are talkers. Some people are charismatic. Some people are thinkers. Some people just present alternative viewpoints, right? They're contrarian. They come into a conversation and they present a different viewpoint that nobody else has thought of. Well, that just because, and that's their gift, right? To have the group think about it. Whatever it is you bring to the table, hone it, use it, get it better, develop it, right? And if it just stays inside you and you never use it, right, you're actually depriving the team, right? Whatever team you're on, whatever group that you're in, your family, your work team, your city government, right? You're depriving them of what you bring to the table. Now, saying that one of our greatest presidents of the United, well, in my opinion, the greatest, right?
In your opinion?
Yeah, the greatest, but one of the greatest, for sure, of our entire history, right? Tested by fire. 1860s, he got elected. 1861, Civil War. Our country went to war with each other.
That is the most divided you can get.
It's a declaration of war. That is it. It's not conflict. Like, we don't agree with Germany right now. We don't agree with North Korea right now. We don't agree with blah, blah, blah. We don't agree with this.
That's on a social level.
Right. And by the way, I used Germany and North Korea. That was a strange combination. They're nowhere near the same level of disagreement
That's the
that we
two
have.
opposite sides of
disagreement, like slight disagreement with policies and procedures. Although back in the day, we disagreed with them a lot. Right?
Modern
to
time.
the point of war. But today, like North Korea, it fits into that model really well. We disagree with you, but we have not declared war. In the United States in the 1860s, 1861, we disagreed with each other so much, so divisive, that states seceded from the Union. They left the country and declared war. We declared war, and we were fighting to the point where U.S. citizens were fighting U.S. citizens on U.S. soil, right? Bloodiest U.S. Engagement ever. Some estimates on the military side, 700,000 U.S., let alone the civilians, which were uncountable. Right. This is just the military losses, let alone the civilian casualties that happened fighting. So we're talking declaration of war, not protesting in the streets, right? Not saying but we get guns and artillery and weaponry and we fire at each other, right? This is war. He was president before it, during it, and after it. Now, during it is unthinkable, right? It's just we on an individual level, we get citizens who fire guns at each other, and it happens, and it's terrible. But imagine the states declaring war. It's just unthinkable. But now, fast forward to the point where we say, okay, the war's over. We have to rebuild. We have to take this country and move forward.
The people who lost have to come on with with the new society,
right? And be sustainable, not to be an oppressed people where you
lost, now you're my slave, which kind of contradicts.
You do exactly what I say going for now we're back to being a republic again, a democratic republic where these people have rights and I'm everyone, right? And it's unfathomable to think of how you went from we disagree with each other, we're declaring war on each other, the war is now over, and now we got to move forward, all within that tight time span. And that piece of it, using your tools to be able to do that, Lincoln, it was storytelling, right? To say that, storyteller, you can be president of the United States and you can guide this country through the most divisive time in our entire history. Wow, that's storytelling. It's a simple tool. Yet it was used to its extreme, right? To be able to bring about change, positive change. And so I think we'll get into this a little bit more. I actually having the other books here, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. We're going to talk about one of the habits is sharpening the saw. And that's finding out the tools that you have and honing them, right? Getting them to work at that level. And granted, not all of us are going to rise to the levels of national acclaim, right?
Different tools have different purposes.
But the whole point is, like, it doesn't matter. It's the tool can have the same purpose. Its application.
And application,
might be on a much different level. It doesn't change it at all, right? It doesn't change the importance of doing it. What if, as a leader, you only have one follower, and that follower is your child? Right, so like this, right? Out of the whole world, let's just say I have leadership abilities, and I've only used them to influence one person. I haven't talked to you, right? I haven't taught students. I haven't led teams. I haven't done that. My whole focus, my only leadership exhibition has been with my son. That's possible, right?
Yes.
Well, does that change the importance level
No.
of like the quantity of people that I'm leading? Absolutely not. What if my leadership to this one individual, and this one individual then goes and becomes a better father, becomes a better husband, becomes a better student, becomes a better leader, right? What if this person that I've influenced has the potential to change his or her world?
And that change would have never come about from the initial leadership,
Right. So that's
which says the importance of it.
Absolutely. It gets that importance level out. So this is what I'm saying. This is for the audience now, right? I want to make sure we're all kind of clear here. I use Lincoln as an example. He's a name that obviously we know, right? Some of us are familiar with some parts of his history. There's a lot more. Again, I highly encourage you to read this
Team
book.
of Rivals.
Team of Rivals. It's a beautiful book.
I'll put the link down in the description to the Amazon. I'll find an Amazon.
I will say this, President Obama, he actually read this book while being president, and he used components of it to some of the thought process to fill his own cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an influential book from that standpoint. But again, you don't need a national platform to be able to apply some of the principles.
Mm-hmm.
Like for myself, to dissect this, saying that you can take a simple skill, one that it brings people together, right? And it doesn't matter what that skill is you can bring people together. You could use that tool for entertainment purposes,
Mm-hmm.
or influential purposes. And influencing a great many people, or influencing one person, or using it to influence your own actions. There is a level of importance there that you can't overlook, and you should dive deep into.
All right. I need to read the book now.
Oh yeah, maybe they'll give me a
I have a few other books on my list first that I'm currently reading, but I'll get to that.
All right, folks, I'm gonna get my little clicker here. Greatly appreciate you being here with us today. This has been one of my more enjoyable discussions.
He doesn't normally enjoy this with me.
No, I don't. Very passionate about this, and it might be the length of my beard growing during quarantine.
Knowledge.
It's the
Solomon.
knowledge. It's the
Or
knowledge piece.
was it Solomon, or who's the one with the long hair?
Oh my gosh.
You can't remember.
Samson.
Samson.
Look at that. I got that one.
I got the S.
All right, folks. We thank you for joining us today. We look forward to talking with each other and with you next time. If you have questions, comments, you want to add to the discussion, please let us know in the comments down below. Send us a message. I'd love to integrate your viewpoints into what's going on with this discussion. Again, the varying viewpoints is going to help us develop our own perspectives, and maybe even discussing it might help you develop your perspective as well. Until next time, thank you very much. This is Professor Chuck.
And Chris, Guya Chris.
Signing off. We'll talk to you next time.